New York, here at Joseph Facita Field for this big PUL matchup between the North Division and the South Division. It's the New York Gridlock at 4-0 and 3-0 in their division, while the Atlanta Soul at 1-2 and 1-2 in the South Division. Dan Hampton alongside Tricia Smith here for you. And Tricia, for this one, it's two teams that, when I say not familiar, I mean very not familiar with each other. They have not played since 2019. But you look at the North and South Division standings. The standings don't really care if you've played or if you haven't played.
Exactly.
It's all about who's going to make the postseason.
Yeah, exactly. This is a really great game for the Atlanta Soul. They've had 3 games. Gridlock has had 4. It's been over a month since Atlanta saw their last 2 matchups on that road trip. So Atlanta's had time to practice. They learned a lot on that trip, and I'm happy to and excited to see what they come out and bring to Gridlock here in New York today.
Well, the big, I think more importantly than anything for the Gridlock, because they are 4-0, they clinch a playoff spot with a win tonight. So those are the stakes. But first, let's talk a little bit about Atlanta's season. You already got into it. Yeah, it's been a while since they last played, and it's also been a while since they last made the postseason as well.
Yeah, Austin has had a new team. They've really been rebuilding since the pandemic. All of these players have been on the team for 1 to 3 years, whereas Gridlock has some longer history on the team. Had a really great comeback win over Austin in their season opener, but lost to DC and Raleigh on the road. So they are really in the hunt, and this record right now matches their record from last year already. So they've matched where they are. They can only go up from here.
Well, speaking of a team that can at least try to go up, being the defending champions are the Gridlock. They're 4-0 after winning the championship last season. And we're going to be talking a plenty tonight, Tricia, just about what it takes to win back-to-back championships.
Yes, and they have a lot of returners from last year, but also a lot of new. And their depth is just even deeper this year. And so they've been working on how to fit those different pieces in and not rely on we're the champions from last year, but earning it again this year.
We saw those special jerseys that are now being adorned along the fence on the team sideline. Those were for Mental Health Awareness Night here in New Rochelle. With just one more home game as well. I think that's an interesting part of the Gridlock schedule, that not too many home games, just 3 total.
Yeah.
That means you've got to take care of business on the road, and especially whether it's North Division, South Division, it doesn't matter. If you're not getting W's when you've got in the car or the van, I know the bus is not yet, but yes, we're getting there. So yes, in the car and van you get there and you get where you need to go. But if you don't get victories on the road, it's tough sledding to make the postseason, because again, it is just North Division top seed versus South Division number 2, and vice versa. So it is a limited amount of teams who can get there, and that means that matchup for the Gridlock at home on June the 8th, I'm not looking obviously too far ahead. We're not even to the open poll yet, but against the Indianapolis Red here in New Rochelle. That is going to be a huge matchup. But again, the Gridlock and Brittany Taylor not looking too far ahead for that one. On the other side, Maddie Frey leads the Atlanta Soul in her 2nd season, a co-founder and a player in that inaugural season. So we will get our first look at the starting O-line for this Empire team as they get started with, for the Gridlock, as we get started with Maria Uverka. You see Jane D'Souza, the last one to the line. Emily Wang out there. Along with Jolie Krebs, of course. Mary Mallon.
Eli Pressburg and Janine Havlaverty to round us out on the line. Gridlock has been changing their O-line a bit. They're trying to see what pieces. Tonight they're missing Gina, which is one of their key handlers, and they're also missing Cassie Brown, who is one of their key handlers on their D-line. So Mari is really going to be the glue of the O-line, along with Eli. And Jolie is the workhorse who is going to be coming in all of the spaces. So be prepared to see her there, too.
So that's Pressburg.
Oh, and right away we see a zone look from Atlanta. We saw this in their game against DC earlier in the season. This is one where they're trying to play pretty flat and have Gridlock go horizontally. And that actually gave them really great success in that game against DC. So coming out early, especially as Gridlock is going upwind right now. It is a bit of a wind here.
Yeah, a bit of a swirling wind here at Facina Field that the Gridlock are no strangers to. Coming out to the wing, collecting is Lavati from Branchville, New Jersey. Veteran of the Gridlock, 6th season for her. Asusa comes back to the disc. As you mentioned, it's almost a laundry list of players not with the Gridlock tonight, almost as long as those players who were in the lineup. Still missing Nina Finley, and that is a scoop grab by Halavati. We might have a disagreement on whether or not that disc was up or not.
Oh, the sole player.
All right, and the observer calls it down. They went, who can make an active call if you go to them. So Atlanta gets their first break attempt.
And this will be Liv Ford to pick up with Halavati defending. So Ford. And I think that was caught. What a catch on the layout. Back to Ford. From Katie Sanders. And finding a way through traffic. Charlotte Doran. And Atlanta breaks. So maybe not the script that the Gridlock had, but certainly the one that the Atlanta Soul had. Wanting to come out and make sure that they make an impact early.
Exactly. Atlanta came out wanting to increase the number of throws that Gridlock had to do right away, knowing that they are down one of their key handlers, and pushed it through, got the turn, and really they were pretty tight in the middle there as they were attacking their end zone. I'd like to see them as they make their way throughout the game, work on their end zone set to really spread it out, but they pushed it through the middle, and a score is a score. So Atlanta with that first break.
Well, I had a conversation with BT before the game, and she was telling me that she did expect with those players out, again, to remind you, it's Valcadenas, it's Nina Finley, as well as Cartagena, Caitlin Tian, Julie Shea, number of players unavailable. Cassie Brown as well tonight.
Yeah, and here we see Ford looking with a nice scoop through, even though we have two New York defenders over there in the area. Doran able to go up and bring it down. I think we're going to see a lot of Ford and Doran really running it for the D-line, but Gridlock back out on O.
So I mentioned, again, all those players on the O-line that are unavailable for the Gridlock tonight. And BT telling me that she expected a different pace for that O-line for the Gridlock. But she wanted to see a connection between the cutter-handler layers.
And another turn.
Yeah, and I think you see that in that middle space. Right? It wasn't a deep look. It wasn't a swing between the handlers. But as they were trying to break through that first line of pressure, and Ford is going to put it up right away. It's a 2v1, and Pressburg there. They came from behind.
Yeah, Ford is going to take those shots, especially when going upwind and being able to come back out and try to get another turnover.
Immediately, Pressburg goes deep. Krebs underneath it. They're going to go short to De Jesus. Back to Krebs. And looking for Jenny. Could not wrangle it in with that right hand.
A huge layout.
And you played with Jane De Jesus for a long time. And I want to say usually that's when she brings down, but with the caveat that not many bring that down.
Yeah, Jenny has scored 44% of Gridlock's goals this season. She is no stranger to the end zone. Usually they end up on the break side, but she usually comes down with it. And Jolie Krebs with a block, trying to squeeze it through the middle.
Yeah, Krebs on the poach there. You saw the Gridlock immediately, the O-line in that person defense. And interesting to note, too, with as much of the Gridlock O-line that we've seen so far in these first 2 points, they've had to run defensively. Put a lot of good work in, but Atlanta has given it right back here twice. And that just over the head of De Jesus on the around from Krebs. Trying to back it up was Waverka in her first season coming from San Francisco, California.
We're seeing some of these misconnections, I think because of the wind, Dan, that maybe as they get a little bit more calibrated, will connect, but as of right now, going downwind, they're going just a bit too far, as we've seen on those last attempts to Jenny De Jesus.
Bannister and you can say quarterback, but that's what you're seeing from Ford. It's one cutter and right back, and right now it's just been Bannister and Ford. Now up through to Chloe Green. Spent some time on the O-line. Now in the second point, crossing over D-line. Ford again goes deep and reading it well, but through the traffic. That was Emily Wang.
Again, I think we're going to see that a lot from Ford tonight. Oh, almost with the block there on Jenny.
Yeah, De Jesus almost committed the cardinal sin of backing up as you catch the disc, but De Jesus is a player you trust. Now into handler space. Goes wide, Krebs. Pressburg thinking deep. This one will float just a little bit. And well read by Halavati. Scores goal number 5 for her on the season. And ties it up at 1 with 6:49 left to go in the first quarter.
Janine is one of the longtime veterans on Gridlock, having played 6 seasons, while we have a lot of new. She and Jenny have been playing together for a long time, and Eli is fitting it right in there. As we saw that string from Jenny to Jolie to Eli to Janine.
We see Pressburg, the way that they get into power position, that has been something that they have done so well this season, whether they've been asked to play O-line, D-line, just get into power position. And for teammates, you know this, that when you have a player that consistently is going to be doing that in practice, that means you know you have the green light.
Exactly.
With the disc about to throw the pole. We also see Yvonne Tang, Abby
So this is our first time that we'll see the New York
Grace Connerly,
D-line.
Chelsea Leader,
And
Estelle Ding, and
as Atlanta's
Nikki
coming out,
Hare.
they'll be going downwind, and we'll see what kind of look that they try.
You should have mentioned, too, on that last point, if not for the defense of Emily Wong. Immediately, the Soul try to answer, going deep behind the defense. Well read. Jarrell. Jarrell, high stall count. Gives it right back to the handler in Booth. Quincy Booth, quarterback in his O-line, and the Atlanta Soul making quick work of the Gridlock defense and a little bit of a celebration after the fact. Christina Marascano.
Quincy Booth connects with Jimena Montana.
But Marascano makes it easy. It's tuna.
Yes, makes it easy. Booth is one of their younger players, but having played on the team for the last few years, she's only 21 years old. Who threw the score? In 2019, she was the youngest player at USAU Club Nationals playing on Ozone. She has a lot of talent and experience, and she's really a key feature for this Atlanta team.
She's also the first player for Atlanta this season to reach double figures in either goals, assists, or blocks, as that was assist number 10 for her on the year, along with her 5 goals and 3 blocks, putting up some big numbers, already over 11,000 total yards this season as well.
Yeah, and Jimena is a workhorse for them. She has only played in one game, and that was in their comeback win versus Austin. And in that one game, she had 318 receiving yards. So watching her score in the end zone, we're going to see that a lot tonight.
Yeah, pardon me, that was not Matanya, but that was not Marascano, but that was Matanya. And making the move over. Well brought in. And that one happened when you break the first line of pressure. The Gridlock making it look, I guess, kind of easy, but Halavati still had to go up for it. And Halavati so far has been the one making the more difficult grabs. And Waverka was the one to pull down goal number 3 for her.
These jerseys are sponsored by New York Gridlock's new partner, Baker Street.
Yeah, we can see Eli really looking to stretch the field, test the downfield defense that Ford is putting on Hallaverty, and nice continue into the end zone. Easy goal there. Once you get behind the last layer of defense, I mean, that's what you want.
Yeah, and Waverka is one of those players that kind of does epitomize the ceiling of this Gridlock team this season. They're trying to build again on a championship team from a season ago and bringing in some new faces as well this year to continue to re-energize the team, including one of the players we see on the D-line now in Ella Jungst in her first season from Arlington, Virginia.
Yeah, Ella is a UNC product, Callahan winner, and really has the speed to test any of Atlanta's cutters downfield.
And she's on the mark now. And then there's Casey Banta Ryan getting the assignment of Booth, as it looks like Jungst maybe some contact in the middle of the field with Latanya. That is a foot race that between Jungst and Latanya, where I think everybody might be a winner.
Us as spectators definitely would. That would be fun. Yep, so a foul there on retracted foul, and now we're back to Booth.
The stall was high at 6, so it was a quick reset. And Latanya directing traffic. And the run through blocked by Hannah Ryan. Block number 2 on the season. Connerly picking up. For the live player. Find Jungst on the sideline. And then, of course, this D-line runs through Abby Hecko. Happy birthday to her, all of 24 years old. Hecko finding Sam Harris. Also should mention, too, a lot of righties on this Gridlock D-line. Unable to find that quick pass. Connolly could not connect.
And Mina Griner picking up and trying to start that movement quickly over to Booth and then to Jimena. This is when Atlanta is really going to shine against New York's defense. They have to keep it moving. When they've gotten stagnant in past games, and we have a pick on the field which is going to stop play. When they've gotten stagnant in past games, it's really hard for them to find those open players. Against elite defenders that New York Gridlock has, they're going to need to have the disc in motion and have players anticipating taking the space so that they can just keep it moving. You're not going to win a foot race with Ella Jungst, but you have to catch her off guard. We see some nice movement from Atlanta.
Yeah, using the vertical space really well. And here's Tanya looking cross field for Booth. That is a throw with a high level of difficulty, and Booth found a way to track it down. But because it was in the air for so long, it didn't have the desired effect. So that was a 10 of 10 throw, but now finally, maybe all they had to do was get over to the break side, because 3 more throws and they're in the end zone.
Atlanta punches in the hold.
Yeah, that's another goal for Montana.
On that point, a couple of moments where the players looked to the observers.
Great movement, finding the space, anticipating the next throw. And here we see the throw from Sam Harris to Grace Connerly. Just a little too spicy. Booth picking it up after that cross-field throw. Really some nice tight upline movement and a quick score.
You'll see
Montana is cooking tonight.
using those USAU hand signals
Well,
as well.
Speaking, of cooking, these mental health awareness jerseys cooked up as the New York Gridlock players wore special jerseys commemorating Mental Health Awareness Month during warm-ups. Gridlock's new partner, Baker Street Behavioral Health, sponsored these jerseys. The jerseys are up for auction right now. Scan the QR code to check them out. The auction closes May 26th. That is next Monday at 11:59 p.m.
For the second and third quarters, but the fourth quarter ends at the buzzer.
And this, of course, broadcast also presented by Breakmark.
New York Gridlock back out on O, going up to Emily Wang, who's been a steady handler for them in the backfield.
Yeah, we want to remind you again that Breakmark Ultimate Apparel, go to breakmark.com to place your next custom team order or check out the PUL Athlete Collab shops. Just in case that you're on Breakmark, probably look for a Jesus jersey somewhere, and you're going to find it, because she has earned her fans over the years, earned her applause for plays like that.
Jenny, as I mentioned, is no stranger to the end zone. That is where she activates. That is who they look to.
But I have a few special
Krebs going up to Pressburg, and Pressburg putting it deep. Jenny always finds the end zone, and a little acrobatic towing in there.
Yeah, there was always a concern that she might have got a little bit greedy there in the end zone, but I think the first check of her feet was to make sure she was in bounds, of course, but then it was, but am I also in the end zone?
Yeah,
it was
having to come back.
both.
Marty wants a trading card, that's right. Who else wants an Eli Pressburg trading card?
We also want to mention that the Discraft Ultra Star is the official disc of the Premier Ultimate League. Discraft, the world leader in disc sports.
Yes, we're getting these all over the place. Yes. No, not you. I know you. Sorry. Not fair. Yeah, we're going to spread them out. We're going to spread the love. You can
So the Gridlock,
you can get two.
after that first break by the Soul, so trying to get, my math isn't the best, Tricia, but trying to get that break back.
And we see Gridlock here playing a little bit off of the handlers, trying to force the horizontal movement. They found that hole upfield. But again, you can see they're really trying to play a little bit more flat. And now they're switching.
That one floated a little bit, but easily handled into the end zone. Mia Greiner, goal number 3.
With an emphatic spike, blowing kisses out to the crowd.
Or players or whoever at this game, make sure you tag the teams on Instagram at NY Gridlock and
Mia Greiner
Soul of ATL
actually
on
has
Instagram.
negative throwing yards, but she is one of their main receivers. And when you cut deep off of a throw like that, who cares if you have negative receiving yards? Stack up the goals.
I mean, most of these players, they don't really care too much of what I've heard about the stats. It's more about the team success and what happens at the end of it. But so far for Atlanta Soul, a lot of different players are feasting on yardage, are getting into the end zone. And we've mentioned that swirling wind so far, but we're noticing that there are multiple players on the Soul, not just Ford and Booth, who've been comfortable throwing it more than 15, 20 yards, which is kind of what can break open that person-to-person defense that we know that the Gridlock have, and trusting their speed and their athletes on those unders. So the Gridlock to receive. Down 4-3. And Krebs. And I think that's going to be a pick called, so it will return.
We see Gridlock set up in a vertical stack, and the disc will remain with hilarity as the defender catches up.
Little give and go. Krebs thinking about it. Of course, one of her favorite targets, to Jesus. He just defended by Chloe Green, her first season from the College of Charleston. One of many players from the Atlanta region. And speaking to Maddie Frey in her second season coaching this team. Mentioning this is a largely Atlanta-based team. Many players coming through the YCC, playing youth together, and then again, whether it was club with Ozone. That is a run-through D. Anna Gustafson, her 4th of the season. Another Atlanta product, a Georgia player, formerly, in her first season.
Pressburg got just a little greedy there on the sideline, trying to squeeze it down to Wang. And really what Gridlock needs is to spread the field and use the entire width, use all of their players. They had a lot of great momentum. And those tight throws are not what's going to get them the win tonight. So I'd like to see them clean that up.
So we will get a timeout here with, I'll tell you exactly how much they're going to put on the clock here in a second. Either way, it will be the Soul with an opportunity to break.
So
remember, the first three quarters are last possession.
Teams can make active substitutions during
Until that disc hits the ground, the play will continue on with the team in possession. I want to remind you with that QPR, or QC code rather, scan to support the New York Gridlock. See Nikki Hare.
Yeah, if you're enjoying this live stream, you can consider donating the price of a ticket to the team. All donations go directly to supporting athlete travel and training. Gridlock thanks you so much for your support. You can scan the QR code on the screen. And a reminder that in the Premier Ultimate League, on timeouts, you can make substitutions. So we see New York bringing out their D-line with Abby Hecko, Ella Young, Sam Harris, Grace Connerly, and Atlanta with Booth, Griner, etc. Jimena. And we're back in seeing New York playing, trying to take away the under position.
Yeah, just 30 seconds on the clock.
Atlanta can just run this out. Take their time. Because it's not a buzzer beater, it's just last possession. They can keep it going even once the clock runs out.
See no sense of urgency there. So yes, there's 10 seconds on the clock, so as long as they don't turn it over the next 5 seconds, they can just continue the possession out. And it looks like that will be the case.
Right,
so we're at zeros, and so Booth and this Soul team will have the opportunity to get a second break of the first quarter and put themselves up 5-3. So got a little bit of work to do here in the red zone.
Montagna really directing traffic, trying to get people moving. Gridlock doing a great job of taking away the undercuts and forcing them to swing it back and forth on the field.
From sideline to sideline, but Soul had looked pretty untested. Youngs went for the layout there, but the speedy Montagna. And we'll have a call downfield.
It looks like there's a pick call on the field.
That will be a pick.
Rearrange to make sure that they're not bumping into each other.
And watching the PUL this season, Tricia, it's been just so difficult. It's almost harder to restart your flow after these kind of stoppages. So then we took that first look taken away. Second look to Booth taken away. And then the turnover. So that will end the first quarter. And the stoppage is always difficult to pick it back up from. So that will end the first quarter of play. As the Soul have given the 4-0 Gridlock a little bit of a surprise. They're up 4-3 with the break. They weren't able to get the second, but it will send us to the second quarter.
Yeah, Soul has really come to play, and I think New York Gridlock in this break between the second quarter is going to need to sharpen up, tighten up, and really focus on what are they going to do to come back out strong.
Yes, we'll be back here in just a sec. Here at Facina Field with the Gridlock trailing the Soul 4-3. We welcome you back here as we shout out to Gridlock sponsor Well by Messer, the premier metabolic and wellness health center for metabolic health in New York and Connecticut, under the leadership of Manhattan-based endocrinologist Dr. Caroline Messer, a team of endocrinologists, adult and pediatric, internists, dermatologists, urologists, gynecologists, psychologists, registered dietitians, and trainers are dedicated to a mind and body approach to wellness. At Well by Messer, the goal is to support successful outcomes through a personalized and balanced approach using evidence-based medicine and wellness. Fisher, as far as positions go, I was prepared for handlers and cutters for marks, but I wasn't so prepared for endocrinologists and dermatologists. But maybe we should start
saying... A very
saying,
important team that everyone should have in their life.
Maybe we should start doing handlerologists. And I think at this point, Jenny D'Souza may be a cutterologist. That's what you want to, as far call her, as the Soul give it away for the first possession here of the second quarter. So just as quick as that break happened to start the game, now the Gridlock, the opportunity to answer.
And this is a big possession for Gridlock as they try to move it upwind with Player with a big shot downfield to Batten to Ryan.
And she is not going to be in the end zone, so that will be a successful huck. And now Yuke's on the doorstep. And Yuke's making the crossover, and now put in by Estelle Ding. 5th goal of the season, the Toronto, Canada native.
New York being patient there. I know that they've practiced that end zone set, really allowing space in the end zone so that they can work, so that players can get open and beat their one-on-one matchups. And here we see the miscommunication on Atlanta, and then Gridlock picking up pretty quickly. Nice movement. Young's pumping off Banter Ryan and looking with Ding striking up line, taking advantage of her speed. Nice pumped up celebration.
Well, yeah, for those who may have just joined the party, noticing that Ella Junks is not on the O-line. Again, she was the leading scorer next to Jesus' 17 goals this season with her 11. But the decision was made to have her play D tonight for personnel reasons. So you'd think a bunch of O-line players are out, so you're going to keep Junks on offense. But no, they're preparing for both the playoffs end of season permutations. So the decision was made for Junks to help to lead that D-line. And with Hecko and all the regular faces, Ding as well. So far we have seen Latanya has showed her elite ability in the middle of the field.
Griner now trying to look for the reset. Gridlock putting on the clamps, but finds some space up to Booth, who puts up a backhand.
And I think that was going to be caught. So, yeah, and I think it's actually coming from behind. Players saying that she was in. So the Gridlock are the ones actually calling for the goal.
The Gridlock player thinks that disc hit the
and in the Premier
Oh, actually, yeah, correction. It's the Gridlock saying that it actually hit the ground instead of calling that was a good goal. So the observers will come in. I think immediately the observers were asked. I think that was a disagreement that was not going to be agreed upon. So this is our best look. And she definitely had possession at some point, but was it before or after the disc had touched the ground? Because the disc certainly does touch the ground, Tricia, but it's, again, whether or not she had possession of it as she hit the ground.
Yeah, from my perspective, it looks like as she goes, she's bobbling it, but then gets possession and has possession as she's hitting the ground. And here we have a little bit of a slower look for you. And the catch on the field will stand. The disc is live with Griner.
And we're the ones with the slow motion up here, yes. But again, it's those on the field. So a credit to everybody involved to our understanding, at least in slow-mo, getting that call right. It's tough to do. So on the doorstep, after the bobble, and picking up is Griner. So then Booth goes right back to her, and Griner up to meet it. Griner, goal number 2, already doubled up her goal output for this season. Again, as the Atlanta Soul, I think, again, record be darned. Tricia, because what the Soul are showing you so far, last season they were 1-5, 1-4 in the division, 1-2 this season, but this month off has certainly showed you a new sign of the team from Atlanta.
Yeah, and we see Atlanta with a nice quick give and go. Griner was looking downfield, didn't like the crowded stack that she was seeing in the end zone, and looked back to Booth, took off. You love to see that.
So at 5-4, the Soul still with that 1-goal lead.
So here on the screen we once again have the QR code. New York Gridlock players wore special jerseys commemorating Mental Health Awareness Month during warm-ups, and Gridlock's new partner Baker Street Behavior Health sponsored these jerseys. They're up for auction, so please participate.
You can scan that QR code to check them out. Auction ends May 26th at 11:59 p.m. Krebs goes deep to DeJesus, and DeJesus wins the foot race. That, Tricia, is what we call clean ultimate in the business, as this is tied up at 5.
Beautiful huck from Jolie Krebs. She is such a workhorse for them, really quarterbacks and takes off. And when she doesn't beat you with her speed, she beats you with her throws.
Would anybody be interested in a Jolie Krebs trading card?
Immediately DeJolie sees Jenny DeJesus striking downfield.
And of course they have played a few more games, so the total goals is a bit skewed. Of course, Atlanta even only played 3 games. Gridlock had played 4, but for DeJesus, that is goal number 19 on the season. So if things continue the way they're going, she would be the first player in the league to hit 20. And coming into tonight, just 4 players total had double-figure goals. But just to tell you the output and the rate of goals that DeJesus is scoring this season. And hard to follow up her 26 goals last season. 13 hockey assists, 5 assists, pure assists or primary assists, and the 6 blocks. Over 1,300 receiving yards.
Nice pull by Sam Harris with good hang time. Allows New York Gridlock to come down and set their zone, which Atlanta immediately goes up and over to Montagna. This is this quick movement that
maybe a little bit too quick.
Maybe a little bit too quick that Atlanta was trying to capitalize on, but Gridlock gets the disc back.
And with this
result,
and with this 7, you see a number of players having crossed over. Again, I think the Gridlock looking for that break, as they've got Krebs along with DeJesus and looks like Halavati and Pressburg also moving over.
Atlanta's in the zone that we saw earlier, the flat wall across.
And that one might have been tipped, but Nikki Hare reads it well. And Krebs through the middle to Sam Harris. Harris, Pressburg, Hare again. Through, wide open, Pressburg, Harris. And that is one of those times when you see BT looks at her line, looks at her 7, and says, this is the moment, we got to go for the break, and successful on the break on the Gridlock.
Great quick movement, making short work of Atlanta's zone. As soon as they got it through, they were just moving, continuing to get the disc through the wall that they were trying to set. And then see Sam with the classic Cartagena, maybe a little bit of a tribute celebration, throwing the disc up and a heart. Harris's first goal of this game. That brings New York up 6-5.
And you did get that sense. It's hard to forget that for the Gridlock tonight, doing things without Val Cardenas, doing things without Cartagena, who this season has already put up over 1,200 throwing yards. She's getting huge numbers. And then Cassie Brown, who does such damage, usually on the D-line.
And Gridlock knew that they were going to be missing those games, and this is Grace Connerly's second game. She did a lot for them in the last one, and really has been helping to move the disc.
A thrower from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, a place that, of course, Ellie Junks is quite familiar with as she's on the mark right now. And so far that Latanya versus Junks matchup has been delivering. Almost another miscommunication, but well read by Doran. The swing to Booth. You see quite an active mark by Chelsea Leader on Booth in her second season. Nice around throw and well done up the line to Latanya. Hat trick of assists for her, or hat trick of goals, I should say.
New York Gridlock had some players hanging around in the deep area, and Montano just went and took that space. We can see here the around backhand, Pressburg in the area, but Montano able to cut the lane and get her third goal for tonight.
Tanya is getting to the open spots, operating generally in the middle of the field, but seeing when it comes to the red zone set for Atlanta, kind of painting the corners.
So we're all tied up, and we really are seeing quite an upwind, downwind game, Dan, as New York got that one upwind break. That's what got them back to take the lead, and it'll be interesting to see if Atlanta can get one of those themselves.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, again, with the last possession being what it is, but then that final end of clock situation, you feel like, yes, if you're within one or two breaks, then the end of the quarter does feel just like another moment that you have to get it back. Here's Long. Goes wide to Malin.
Again, Atlanta running that zone. They've seen success with it against New York Gridlock.
Patiently working, grinding away yards.
And this will be
an out of bounds.
Yeah, you
Just
see
a little too close to the sideline. And here Atlanta has their break attempt we were talking about.
it might be a bit deceiving. It looks like Pressburg, they may have got the worst of that one. Eli from Georgia themselves. So immediately being able to diagnose, and looks like they may have been stepped on. So this brings on an O-line regular in Junks, and it'll be one switcheroo on the other side for Atlanta as they bring Gustafson back on. So Ford did so much of her good work in the first quarter. Since that time, the O-line for the Gridlock have settled down really since that first point. To Jesus on Ford. High stall count again. A little bit of contact. Sanders calls it out. And they are going to have a quick discussion. Emphasis on the quick there. Goes back to Ford. 7 minutes left to go here in the first half. And tied up at 6s. Inside break into Ford. And Ford shooting deep. It's Krebs over the top. Coming from behind. A big D from Krebs. And then she gives it right back to Ford. Maybe Krebs got a little bit greedy. Now over the top, another throw from Ford. Downwind is working to good effect if you're the Atlanta Soul.
Ford seeing the space over the top. Goes with the hammer to Marsicano.
So this time it's Tuna. But so much of that was orchestrated by Ford. She gave it away to Krebs, but Krebs gave it right back to her.
Krebs with a big dog block. Small frame, but she's a big player. And then, yeah, slices it over. Ford immediately with the give and go. Moving the disc. Seeing that open spot, Gridlock was trying to pull off and poach into some of that lane right in front of the disc. Ford says, I see that. I can throw that.
Certainly downwind. Something that Ford has done so many times in her career. last season with 12 assists in his second season now with Atlanta, the Elon product. And to think this season in 3 games, he had just 343 throwing yards, and already tonight, particularly in that first quarter, due to some of the big hucks, could potentially just match that total in one game.
Yeah, she's a big part of stretching the field. And what that break does is that now it puts Gridlock going upwind. It changes the orientation of this game. So for Gridlock to hold on this possession, they're going to have to score upwind. And Atlanta, again, out with this zone that we're seeing.
You saw that popped up a little bit on Abby Hecko. See a swirling wind popping up on Hecko, then being pushed down on Krebs. The length of Booth could potentially get into the eye range of some of these handlers. You saw a miscommunication there between Krebs and Jungs, wanting Jungs to go a little bit wider there. Now Hecko.
Yeah, it looks like Gridlock's having a little bit of miscommunication on which handlers that they want back. They're flowing a few through. Jenny De Jesus coming back. Mari Mallon, really with Jungs and Hecko anchoring. But now, again, we're seeing switches. So I think that's actually providing a little bit of miscommunication for Gridlock as they're trying to get into their flow with the zone.
So many players around the disc. And still, it's been, what to my count, around 20 throws and a 5 to 8 yard range. Gridlock fighting for every yard. Finally, they get it back to the middle, but you see only grinding out around 7, 8 yards. Now a little bit better forward movement. Krebs. Again, give and go and give and go and give and go. And now Krebs back in the middle. Directing traffic, thought about the break throw. Defender sells out. Now Krebs inside to Jesus. She's going to just throw it to space. And finding a way was Banta Ryan. There wasn't much space on that point, and especially if you're Casey Banta Ryan, you're kind of just watching proceedings downfield. You got to stay active and stay patient. Mm-hmm. Then when it's your time, get into the end zone set and go take care of business.
Right. Once you break through that zone, all other players are active. Gridlock taking their time. Krebs with a nice inside. Looking to De Jesus, who sees a lot of space on the open side and can put it out there. I really think that point was a win for Atlanta with the zone. Wanting to increase Gridlock's throw count, trying to force some errors. They didn't get the error this time, but they got a lot of throws up. And I think we're going to see more of that.
Welcome to City Park Stadium.
Gridlock able to hold going upwind to tie us back up and put Atlanta back in that position.
It's an interesting point because Gridlock did what they needed to do, which is score in a difficult position upwind, but then they also now, 3 minutes later, have had so many miles, well, at least quite a few feet, put on the likes of Krebs and Jesus. Green has this one picked off by Jungst. So that's one of the wins in the matchup. And Jungst almost gave it back. Not for the layout of Hecko. Hecko, Banta Ryan, those assured hands. Good pressure by the Soldo on this turnover. Here's player looking for the break.
And we have a timeout from New York Gridlock.
Comes at the 3:36 mark, and probably a well-timed timeout as well, because now you get to change some personnel. But the D-line for the Gridlock immediately going and taking care of business. And I know we said that Abby Hecko yesterday was her birthday, so yeah, maybe a bit tired from a day of enjoying her birthday, but Hecko plays that long point beforehand, many of which was in the handler space, and then coming out on this D-line.
Yeah, with the layout to save possession.
Correct.
And it looks like we will see nearly all of the same players coming back out on the line.
So this is maybe just a conversation point as to organize, take that breath with 3:36 to go in the first half. And this is the break back that the Gridlock at this point need, unless they're able to make the clock work for them for the last possession.
Atlanta taking this opportunity to set up again in that zone.
To Hecko. Then it's Yulksen. You saw the wind drop that one quickly, the elevator, and Hecko, since she saved one, I'd say that's at least a half a save. Takes a lot of focus. Hecko to Harris. Around to Connerly. Now back up Hecko. I think asking for the contact. Maybe a little too much from Danny Ortiz.
By Hecko on the mark.
In her third season. The native of Mexico. I think the discussion is for Hecko that he was trying to establish that pivot foot, and as she went to step out, that is where the defender was already set up. And I think the counter argument for Ortiz was, hey, I was already in that position as you were trying to establish, but it looks like that conversation is over in a hurry as Yost and Hecko are going to play with 2:42 left to go. And a reminder again, this is last possession, so if the Gridlock continued on and scored after 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is not going to be the case, that is a huge layout coming through on it. That was Mia Greiner. Not usually known for her defensive acumen, and Booth immediately goes the other way.
Player able to go up.
Player chasing it down.
So Player read that Booth huck early. So will the Soul have time to set up their zone? Not before Player puts up a huck the other way. Banter Ryan. Mano-y-mano, and just enough to push it out was Soju Hakari. Her third season in a Soul uniform, the Atlanta, Georgia native. Still a young player at Emory. And this means we're going to have a timeout the other way.
Timeout.
And that's a gift for New York Gridlock, honestly. They decided to run the same line out after they took a timeout instead of putting on fresh legs. And now we'll see if they decide to actually make some of those replacements so that you have some freshness out there. We can see Atlanta is putting on their offensive line.
So the O-line now with a minute 37 until the last possession for Atlanta.
Here we see the zone as Harris, Connerly, and Connerly putting it up to Hecko, maybe a little too casually, and Greiner able to come out and make that block, then going the other way, and now going the other way where Banter Ryan isn't able to close it out. So we've gone the full length of the field 3 times so far in this point. Lots of running, and we do see some substitutions for New York Gridlock. Player still out, and we have 1:37 left on the field clock here as Gridlock tries to get this back.
It does seem so far, Tricia, that the Gridlock have been winning a lot of those 50-50s. But not that one, as Banter Ryan had it defended. So now the Soul, again, 1:20 left to go in this second quarter.
I like the looks on both sides to stretch the field, and a miscommunication from Booth.
Yeah, a bit too much trying to stretch through the middle. So another gift for the Gridlock. As the Gridlock, they have 1 minute now to the last possession. So no reason to rush anything. They just want to get in the end zone, though, either way, because it still probably wouldn't be enough time for the Soul to go the length of the field.
Yeah, we have a call, Doran, on Krebs. I think it's a foul. And they're having a conversation with the observer.
Yeah, is this a pick, or is this potentially a push-off? I think a foul is being called. Yep. So Doran and Krebs in conversation with 53.4 seconds remaining.
For making this event memorable.
You're tied up at 7. This is I'll say the moment in the first half.
All home games are telecast
Because if the
live.
Gridlock were able to get the break here,
Go to westchesterflames.com.
in theory they'd be getting the break back, but due to the time on the clock,
Click on the blue bar. Watch.
they would technically be putting themselves back up. That was a miscommunication between Pressburg and Krebs. Unfortunately for Krebs, did not travel, but that is a drop across the middle by Malin, and now it's 32 seconds left until the final possession.
Malin, really their possession handler, sees a lot of touches. I'm surprised that she had that drop. It was just a little too spicy coming through the middle. Again, Atlanta can play this out once the clock hits 0. Take their time, as many throws as it takes. This is a really important possession for them to hold.
There's another stoppage. There's 7 seconds on the clock to the last possession, so we can assume here, unless there's something pretty tricky here in the next about 4 seconds. As it's 7 seconds on the clock, but even with the way that Atlanta's been moving the disc, you think they're going to complete 1 or 2 more passes? So here's Booth against DeJesus, and the observers will
Looks
converge.
Like the observers are checking in about the end of half and what the rules are and what's going to happen when this
Having a
clock
quick
runs
conversation about the end of the half.
out. We know that the rules should be that it's a last possession.
Yeah, and again, the rules are that this is last possession, so Atlanta
So they're going to run the
has
clock
disc.
out. So we're going to hit the clock at 0. The clock is going to run out. This is last possession. So that is what the refs are saying, is that should have been less time on the clock. So here we are in the final possession. So it's either going to be the Soul taking an 8-7 lead into halftime, or we'll be tied up at 7 between the Gridlock and the Soul. They're in. Krebs almost got a left hand onto it. That is a difficult throw, and well done by Matanya to almost ride the defensive player. Probably would have got the foul call if not for the catch and just continuing to play on.
Yeah, we see Doran really working for Atlanta along with Montagna.
Here's Bannister. High stall count, but she had the reset. And across the middle for Lally, one of the Atlanta veterans in her 3rd season. Booth. Booth likes to release at those different and interesting angles with the height that she has. I feel like sometimes almost catches her teammates by surprise a little bit. Doran still 7-7. Booth quickly to Matanya. Back to Booth, just fighting for every inch. And they're going to play patty cake all the way into the end zone.
And the Soul scored.
The Alligators are in the water for the Atlanta Soul as they're able to avoid that break, and instead they're able to hold. But they've won the break battle 2-1 here in the first half, and that means that the Gridlock have a little bit of work to do in the second half as they trail 8-7 after that goal from Booth.
Yeah, Atlanta really taking their time, really only using about a quarter of the field on that possession, but trusting one another, finding the space, and taking the lead.
Make sure to check out the merchant.
Gridlock's going to have, I think, some really important conversations during this half on what they can do. A lot of the errors that they're making are ones that they're making themselves, not drops or throwaways, overthrowing people. They're going to need to tighten that up if they want to come back and take the lead.
So some things to think about for the undefeated Gridlock. 4-0 on the season, but currently down 8-7 to the Atlanta Soul. Need to go even on the season. Again, it's North Division, South Division, and it's all fun here at halftime in the Premier Ultimate League.
so impressed by the conditioning of this Gridlock team. They look very well seasoned, and in spite of the relative heat and the lots and lots of reps, they're just continuing to go full throttle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I were looking at these two teams, I don't know if I'd be able to tell which one was playing relative effort. So I am really impressed with their clear conditioning, their hard work that has brought them here.
Ultimately, it's something that helps me regulate my mental health. Playing with joy is huge for me. It's something that just helps me touch grass literally, but also just have a good time with friends in a competitive environment.
I think that being able to play Ultimate Frisbee at a young age has done a lot for my mental health and to show me that I am capable of being confident at something and being able to pursue it and believe that I'm good at it.
To me, mental health means being in community and asking for help when you need it.
Volar en un avión era mi mayor sueño. ¿Cómo se sentiría estar en el cielo? Me imaginaba surcando las nubes. Para mí, eso era libertad. Desde pequeña, supe que no encajaba como las demás chicas. Cuando empecé a jugar, era la única chica del equipo. El simple hecho de estar en el campo de juego era un acto de resistencia. Tuve que luchar por obtener esta oportunidad. No nos define nuestro pasado, sino la fuerza que se necesita para seguir adelante y crear algo mejor.
Here we are for the second half of action at Joseph F. Casino Field. And they open it. Smith, we are on. I think it's a pretty beautiful night for Ultimate, all things considered, here in New Rochelle. A little bit of a swirling wind for the players, but perfect temperature, perfect conditions on this Saturday evening as the Gridlock come back and immediately a reset handler turnover. Miscommunication potentially, maybe just an underthrow. Pressburg could not get to it, and don't look now, but the Soul can start this game the way they began it, and that is with a break of the Gridlock offense. And so they are just about 2 or 3 throws away, depending on how far and hard the Gridlock can make it work for it. Ortiz into that around. And Tanya. Ortiz again. And bringing it in. Doran. And losing some yards there. Griner. A lot of experience, a lot of speed on this line for Atlanta. Matanya. And there's another break to start another quarter. The Atlanta Soul 1-2 on the season, but 9-7 up with break number 3 of this Gridlock offense to start the third.
Atlanta Soul coming out with patient offense off of the turn. You see the entire width of the field, taking their time, knowing that this is an important possession. We saw them go sideline to sideline. Montana doing work, and up to Doran.
And just to remind you, to tell you what's at stake here. For Atlanta, not to say that their playoff lives are at stake, but it feels very close. 1-3 in the South, a very crowded South Division. Could be difficult to come back from. And on the other side for the Gridlock, and at 4-0, they clinch a playoff spot with a win. And sure, they're a little bit of a ways away, but there's also a lot of action going on the next few weeks. Like, let's say on June the 7th, where you'll see the Indy Red against the Philadelphia Surge. Now, that's looking like a huge matchup. And then the home finale for the Gridlock on June the 8th. That is also week 10. Where it'll be the Indy Red at Gridlock. And that game also now could have some huge ramifications. So Atlanta now coming out in their zone again. They don't mind taking some time off the clock. Still a lot of ultimate left to be played here though tonight. But things are going the way Atlanta would like them to do. That was a heck of a throw by Krebs, then immediately thrown away. Once again, a little bit out of the reach of Pressburg.
You can see frustration building on Gridlock. Pressburg unhappy that was not in their connection. Another misconnection, but this time on the Atlanta side, looking for Ford on the line and could not connect, so Gridlock back with the disc. Atlanta immediately into the zone.
So now the Gridlock back to it. Back on offense. So now again, it seems to be for the Gridlock. They're able to go back to business as usual. That was a very important throw to break that zone. Then Pressburg over the top to Jesus, stays in bounds, toes it, and then into the end zone. Finishing it off is Banter Ryan. So for the Gridlock, things could have gotten ugly, but they were able to get the possession back. And so far in this third quarter, I think for both teams with the disc, with the exception of the break, of course, it seems like unforced errors so far have been the name of the game. As Jesus always able to get out of a little bit of trouble. Ginger feet. And then the assist on a platter from Malin in for Banter Ryan.
And it really was Ellie Youngs's throw through the inside that broke open that zone and got Gridlock into the motion and for that score. So even though it's not even a hockey assist, I give that to Jungst for the score.
And that might be something, a bit of a break glass in case of emergency, because the idea was to put Jungst on the D-line, get her some reps there, figure some things out, looking ahead, and maybe now this rest of this contest will be now looking to the remaining minutes on the clock. So we'll see if we see more Jungst on offense. We don't at least have to see that until the Gridlock potentially get another turn, because she's here on this D point. Booth, and that Jungst versus Montagna matchup. It almost makes you feel sad that this is just Jungst's first season on the Gridlock, so we didn't get to see that in Gridlock practices last season. It's a deep look, and heck, at the last second, Popovich thought she had a beat on it, but Hecko, strong pressure from behind. And now it's a break chance where the Gridlock do have to go the length of the field, and they have to go downwind. So let's see. We'll see if Coach Taylor chooses to take a timeout. See what he likes, what she sees. Again, Pressburg has played plenty of O points. Jungst, plenty of O points. This is well done. Pressburg, of course, in a power position. Can Hare get to it? A little bit too far for both she and Leader. I think if you're Gridlock, silver lining would be that, yes, some time came off the clock, but now you've got Atlanta back in a deep position, and you made that Atlanta Soul offense run a little bit. Well, they're going to run even more. Booth going deep again. This time is Popovich underneath it. And then the break throw. Popovich still one throw away.
Griner on the doorstep looking for her teammates. Booth saying, put it up. I'm here.
And then Booth goes over the top. Could not corral it. Montagna. That would have been score number 4, but maybe Booth got a little greedy on the scooper, but see, it was the right look, but the wind pushed it a bit too far out of the hands of Montagna. Leader. High stall count on Leader, looking for a bailout.
Abby Hecko able to get in there for the reset, putting it out to space for Jungst.
And is this a call? Yes. It's not a timeout, but instead it's a pick. Did not affect on the far side.
Abby Hecko, really the engine of the Gridlock D-line. As we see her making her nice moves to get open and stretching it all the way to the other sideline to Hare.
Hare thought about going inside the Leader, but those post defenders from Atlanta, speaking of defenders, throwing it right in the breadbasket of Kari. And I think this will be a timeout for Atlanta because they're not really loving the offensive part of the O-line, but the defensive part for the Atlanta O-line have been doing their job. So at these points, kind of interesting. It does seem like the D-line or a mix and match for the Soul will now come back. But again, speaking to Maddie Frey before this game began, she did mention that I asked, okay, starting 7, just what are you thinking today? And of course she hit me with, well, we're thinking of a bunch of different players. And that is a diplomatic coach's approach, but I think that's also what we've seen tonight, where it hasn't just been 7 O-line for the Soul, but they've extended to 9 or 10 players, and they've also been using that deep ball so well. If it doesn't work the first time, Tricia, try a second.
And here, not so deep, but that was catchable by Montagna, and just maybe a little bit back on her heels, not able to reel it in.
So it's Hikari, picks up. It's about that first throw deep. With Ryan. High stall count here, so this is a bit of a bailout throw. And it's Sam Harris that knocks it down. Got position early. Abby Heckel was there as well. You can see the wind just floated that disc long enough for Harris to get position. Now Heckel on the break to Harris. So, see all those defenders going downfield, testing the Gridlock, saying, all right, if you're going to beat us, go ahead, try to beat us on the unders. We're not going to give you the deep. That's a break throw from Krebs. Now Player. Wide open, Banta Ryan. Youngst has looked off. And that throw, they're going to say a foul, and Griner will not protest. If anything, that is just good-spirited play. Griner agrees. Now the high stall count on Banta Ryan as well. Harris, there's a poach. And it's Youngst at the front of the stack. Now Heckel thinking Harris, but instead goes short. Banta Ryan, 4:36 left to go here in the third quarter of play. And Gridlock still down 9-8. And Jesus, once again, Atlanta saying it's not something we're going to discuss. Jesus fouled. These break throws at this point from Heckel just opened up so much of the other side of the field. And this is into double coverage from Krebs. It is broken up by the Soul. And I think Griner, her second layout here, is a bit shaken up after the play. But for Griner, coming into this one, 3 games, just 1 block for her, but maybe a little bit of the wind. And what was required of her today is that she just found herself around the disc. And it's a reminder that you look at the stats, but the stats don't tell the whole story. And she's been a good pressure defender when the O-line has given the disc wave. Also playing some D-line tonight, too. Now Ford. Tanya. That could be a deadly combination as well. One picked off her shoelaces. Ortiz. A lot of time coming off the clock as well. A reminder that we've had just 2 goals scored here in this third quarter. It was the break from Doran that got us started at 9-7, and then it was the 9-8 answer from Banta Ryan. That is all that we have had so far here in the third.
Here, Ellie Youngst has been hunting for this disc on Montagna and feels that she got there first on this, so they're going to go to the observer. It was very close.
Now the question really, Tricia, is what do you think? And it's one of those, Ty might go to the offensive player, and I think I might have to agree with the observer. It's also tougher, too. Montagna had it with 2 hands, while Youngst had it with just 1. And I feel like so often, Tricia, maybe we're 2-hand bias here in the sport, but...
Banta Ryan just missing that one to Ford.
Good pressure from the Gridlock, but Soul still completing their passes, keeping possession. Now under 3 to play until the last possession. I think that might have been a foul.
Both Montagna and Ford calling out to their players downfield, trying to direct traffic, tell them where to go, not liking what they're seeing. Wow, and what a dig.
What a fantastic grab. The Atlanta Soul going up 10-8.
And taking a much-needed rest, Montagna.
That is goal number 4 for her, but that is certainly the best of the bunch. Scooping that out of the ground, and Ford so quick to let this one go. And there's a look at the turnover. And some difficult catches, too, by the Soul. Hard to fault that Gridlock defense. Pressure on almost every throw. 50-50s, bang-bang plays. Youngst and Montagna. Again, Ford just calling out. Somebody makes something happen, and then Ford's the one who makes it happen. That is as close to the ground as you can get. And so often, Tricia, just almost in slow motion, walk us through with the way the disc is spinning. Again, wind be darned, but to go in with your, not the trailing hand, again, the hand closest to the disc, and make sure you get that on the inner lip instead of the trailing lip, means that the disc doesn't pop out of your hands when you hit the ground. Just incredible dexterity and skill from Latanya.
Absolutely. She's been playing for a long time. She plays a lot of small balls, mini, fast-paced ultimate on Team Columbia and with her Colombian counterparts. And then also previously on Gridlock. She was on Gridlock last season. She has made some fantastic catches and is also a fierce force on defense. So absolutely the best of the bunch of her goals so far this evening.
So after that was about 9 minutes, in case you're keeping track at home, that was about 9 minutes of a Atlanta Soul hold. So not a break, but a hold for the Atlanta Soul for about 9 minutes of game time, which does not support the Gridlock.
No, Gridlock needs to have some faster possessions, move the disc quickly. Atlanta Soul's zone has been slowing them down, and they had their opportunities on that last point. They couldn't close them out, so they really need this hold here.
So there is Pressburg working in the backfield, Connerly, DeJesus, and this is that point in the game too, again down by 2, that expect DeJesus to so often not only be going every other but playing a ton of D points as well. Krebs, always remind you of the Krebs. Played with her a bunch. Such a not only talented player, but as a young player who forgets the turnovers. He's had some costly turnovers in this game, but usually forgets them. Pressburg, that is a beautiful throw up the sideline and opens things up. And the box out, one-handed grab. And an important goal for Halavati. Gridlock bring it back within 1.
I wouldn't imagine that they would practice that play at practice, throwing it in the same 1 foot along the sideline.
Yes, we do say there are thirds of the field, but truly that was 20ths of the field. That was the same 10th of the field from that, again, terrific throw by Pressburg.
Yeah, Pressburg just put it around the Atlanta defender, right into the hands of Fanta Ryan, able to move it on up.
So an important hold there. Okay, we want to shine a light on mental health today with the New York Gridlock players having worn those special jerseys commemorating Mental Health Awareness Month during warm-ups. Gridlock's new partner, Baker Street Behavior Health, sponsored these jerseys. Jerseys are up for sale for auction right now. Scan the QR code to check them out. The auction closes May 26th. And again, it's next Monday, May 26th at 11:59 p.m. This is a huge moment, again, not only for the Soul, but team that if they had fallen, they could have potentially, in this game, see their playoff hopes dry up. But instead, they've got 40 on the clock, that being 40 seconds until the final possession. I think they're in no hurry at all, Tricia, because again, worst case scenario, well, this might be worst case scenario because now about 15 yards from the end zone, Harris knocks it down. And Sam Harris, they have made some big plays here in the second half to get the disc back for New York.
So if New York can hold on to this for the next 10 seconds, then it will be last possession for Gridlock.
Yost. What a two-handed jump. Again, in unison, you and I, Tristan, just again understanding what we're seeing, and that somehow finds its way through. So that's not only the final possession, but that happened at 0-0 on the clock. So you want to call it a buzzer beater? You want to call it a final possession? Instead, we're going to call it a timeout, because the officials say that a timeout was called just prior to Yost throwing up that late stall call. So that will be a timeout. So it is not 10-10. It is still 10-9 in favor of the Soul. But this would be the break that the Gridlock need here in the second half. So we'll see the 4 seconds put back on the clock. With the New York timeout with 4 seconds remaining. The disc will be in the hands of Jungst. And maybe a bit fortunate too with that grab from player. I think it might have been Ortiz who possibly got a slight touch on it. Good job by player just to read it into the hands. Player also pretty familiar with the Southern Ultimate, the Gulf Breeze Florida native. So Jungst. And it looks like now we will have the final possession as Hecko and Jungst will work through this. So the result could be the same, but maybe just not with the same fanfare. Hecko to Jungst, and the Soul wanting to play that zone. To Jesus. Good job by that Atlanta Soul forcing. That's a tough throw from De Jesus over the top to player. It's a tough thing because on the last possession you feel like there might be a sense of urgency, but in the same way there's not, because it's just you against yourself, because there's no defense to be played afterwards. It's all offense here. Hecko trying to move the mark. You can see her thinking about the over the top, thinking about turning it upside down. And De Jesus and the Gridlock just losing yardage, and they're fine to do that.
You can see a little bit of frenetic energy coming in to Gridlock. Atlanta's zone is starting to rattle them a little bit, especially as one of the defenders starts to pull off to guard the reset space.
You can see maybe,
feeling like, what are my options?
Yeah, maybe that zone, it will be a war of attrition. You can see Ortiz laboring behind that zone just a little bit. Again, but Hecko to Jesus, Jungst working so hard, and now you see it's almost like a hockey line switching out the handler set now. Hecko stays back there, but Sam Harris coming back into the handler space along with Estelle Ding. Ding with the disc now. And Jungst. Looks like that Soul zone is almost run out of gas, but we say that, and yet there's Matanya again, right behind Jungst. Jungst with it. Player. Still 30 yards from their own end zone. And so interesting, because if this winds up being a goal for the Gridlock, I mean, for them, this is everything, but for the Soul, it just again puts you back on even. Hecko to Jungst, and Jungst into the end zone. 10 all. So Gridlock break. We started it with a Soul break. We end it with a last possession Gridlock break. And that was the second last possession Gridlock break after player was in with 0 on the clock. That timeout from the Gridlock meant that they really had to earn it, Tricia, and they did.
And they did, Dan. They took their time. They went from being at the 5-yard line all the way out to the 40-yard line, and then worked their way back using that patient offense. And Youngs, instead of throwing the assist, she got the goal.
Well, we still got 12 minutes left to go, but the game to be decided between the Gridlock and the Soul, all tied up at 10-3. back here in New Rochelle, all tied up at 10 with 12 minutes left to go on the clock. We remind you this live broadcast of the Premier Ultimate League is brought to you by Breakmark Ultimate Apparel. Go to breakmark.com to place your next custom team order or check out the PUL Athlete Collab shops. As well as Discraft. The Discraft Ultra Star is the official disc of the Premier Ultimate League. Discraft, the world leader in disc sports. So Tricia, you and I were just talking in that break, and I was mentioning, well, do you think that, again, the hard work from that offense of the D-line of the Gridlock plus Jana Jesus, but again, you reminded me of Jana Jesus. 12 minutes is just fine for her. I think she's got enough left in the tank.
She has plenty in the tank, and this is something that Gridlock excels at. They have really, over the course of last season and into this season, realized you don't need to take 25 players to away games. It's one game. If you were playing in USAU in a tournament, you need that depth. But she knows that for herself personally and for many of her teammates, they can play every point, every other point, and have enough gas to make it through a PUL game.
Well, talking to Brittany Taylor before this game, she mentioned that in a shortened season like this, the expectation is that players are going to do a lot of the work on their own. Mm-hmm. With the championship Final Four coming just a month from basically 3 days from now, that means that these players have got to be prepared, be in shape, do all your own individual work, and then come together for the rare, not only games, but come together for the even rarer practices and make sure you're ready to go into the team dynamic. And again, for this kind of game, a reminder that so many of those players that usually have so many touches, if anything, the touches for the Gridlock have had to be replaced tonight. And the Solon made them work for it. And the question for the Gridlock now will be, do you have that one last push, that break that looked like they may have had earlier in the contest, as I think that one may have been knocked out of the hand of Griner, who took that injury late in the third, but seems all right now. DeJesus now playing a D point as well. Same thing with Pressburg. And that one just knocked out of the sky by Krebs. You see what it means to her. And then she's going deep. Pressburg thought about it, but that will be a foul on Pressburg.
We saw Gridlock in a little bit of a junky defense there, clogging up the inside space as Atlanta tried to do the give and go, and Krebs able to get a hand on the disc.
And if Krebs doesn't smack that down with the ferocity that she did, very easily does it feel like it's possession for an Atlanta player. That was a bang-bang catch by Krebs as well. Good pressure by Jarrell, and then better pressure by Booth, who snatches it out of the sky away from Hare. And then Booth goes deep. Looks like this one is going to stay in bounds, and well read by Griner.
Pecco not able to get the block, just mistimed it, as what a beautiful inside throw from Griner. Teammates running out to celebrate. Well deserved to go up 11-10.
So while the Gridlock thought that they had what they needed for the potential important break, instead it winds up being another hold for the Atlanta Soul. And we have seen tonight for Atlanta, Tricia, these dirty holds. If you want to say that's how they've been kind of keeping their lead, hasn't had to be pretty for Atlanta, but they've also been so willing to, if they get a little broken up the first time, as Krebs just kind of stepped in, they're willing to play some defense, get it back. But once they do get it back after losing possession, they are very willing. We've seen Ford do the same thing as Booth. Those two shooters have done nothing but huck it when the opportunity has arisen.
Yeah, Krebs is going to want that one back. I know her. And especially that Atlanta was able to make it through to Zay for the score.
So Zay eating for the first time in the end zone today. Zay in her first season out of Duke. Over 500 total yards for her, playing on that D-line.
Looks like that pole landed out of bounds, so Mari Malin gets to take it to the middle.
So Malin will set things up. Her team down 11-10. Still plenty of time, 10-12. But remember, there is no last possession this time around. Final buzzer means the game is over. And if things were to continue on trend, it would be the first loss of the season for the Gridlock. And not only that, but the first loss in 2 seasons, because again, last season they were 6-0, 5-0 in their division, and the PUL champions.
Yeah, I think Gridlock is fighting themselves in this. They have an expectation that they're the champions, they're the reigning champions. They have only added depth and talent from Youngst and Hecko and many other really talented players on this team. And there's maybe a little sense of entitlement. And Atlanta's coming out fighting. They're saying, we are not going to go down without really testing you. And Gridlock is going to have to earn this.
Earning those yards was Waverka. Waverka then going to Hecko. That is a low throw picked out of the shoelaces by Malin. Then back to Krebs. And Echo now playing this O-point on this near sideline for Banter Ryan, who has had such confident and secure hands today. Just losing out in that 150-50 there in the second quarter, but other than that, it's been almost a perfect day for Banter Ryan. Krebs, cross field, Hecko, good movement side to side by the Gridlock, and then Isoldo coming right back into their shape. Krebs, now Banter Ryan, in no hurry is that Gridlock offense.
Yeah, Malin really anchoring in the backfield. And she's a possession handler, so only 3 yards as her average pass. She's trying to pull back. Hecko looking her off.
So Hecko, Krebs so good at just jumping into those extra 2 or 3 yards. And Jungst. And just, Jesus was not even looking at the disc. She had turned her back and somehow found a way to keep possession for the Gridlock. That might be a game-saving catch by De Jesus. Looked like the Atlanta Soul defender was almost in her blind spot. Now going crossfield again. And De Jesus also got a body afterwards. Now Krebs. To Hecko. Now on the doorstep. She wants that throw over the top. Instead, it's Banter Ryan coming to the front of the end zone, and Atlanta can't adjust. That is an important hold for this Gridlock team. And I do want to go back to that grab by De Jesus, again, almost behind her. And I don't think she initially knew the disc was for her, but such quick reaction time. And it was also a layup by a Soul player at the exact same time. So that's an incredible play by De Jesus. Before finally this is put in, you see that Ford thought about trying to keep Banter Ryan in the deep space, but Banter Ryan says, all right, well, if you've got your back turned to the throw, I'm going to go right to the front of the end zone. And a reminder, too, always, Tricia, for young players that the front of the end zone counts, I think, as much as the back of the end zone does.
That it does, Dan. That it does. You get a point no matter where you score it in the end zone.
Again, Banter Ryan has time after time in this game now. That is goal number 3.
We saw Jolie Krebs cross over onto the D-line there, really having an extra set of hands with Abby Hecko, who has been that engine. Abby Hecko coming into this game had 15 assists or hockey assists, whereas everyone else on D-line has had at most 2. So to have another set in Krebs working with her and being able to throw that assist, Hecko still got the hockey assist on that, really I think was helpful. But now back on defense, we see Hecko and crew back out.
But Atlanta not too worried about it, just working up that far sideline. Atlanta now one throw away. Something cheeky for Booth, and they say that Booth was able to tow it inbound. So that's very long Gridlock offensive possession. It's a quick hold from Atlanta to go back up 12-11, and certainly Quincy Booth showing out in today's game, given one of the marquee games of her career. But if you're the Gridlock defense, you're thinking, well, maybe a bit too easy up on that open sideline. You see the move against Banter Ryan, and the nice left-handed grab by Booth as well to also toe the sideline.
Yeah, again, Booth just 21 years old, but with a wealth of experience on U20 teams, Team USA, Ozone and club, playing down in Georgia, and having been a part of this Atlanta Soul, big part of the heart and the soul of the Atlanta Soul.
Yeah, reminder too, again, that this is a largely Atlanta-built Atlanta Soul team. And when we say Atlanta-built, we do mean YCCs. We do mean the youth ultimate scene in Atlanta. And I can't talk about youth ultimate in Atlanta without, of course, bringing up Miranda Knowles. Just a legend of Atlanta ultimate. Done so much work for. And not only the top levels, but also young players as well. So now more Atlanta Soul, not to say time wasting, but Miranda Knowles, the longtime Padea girls coach, and cannot look at an Atlanta roster without seeing the name Padea up and down. Now here's Hecko into that, say, second phase of offense. So kind of getting out of that initial break, and now here's Pressburg calling in for Leader to come a little bit closer to the disc. Hecko faking deep, and if you're the Soul, you got 5:30 to nurse a one-goal lead, and their offense has looked pretty untested here in the fourth quarter, while the Gridlock had to grind and fight for every inch.
Yeah, and so much respect to the Atlanta wall and running in the zone. They have just been running back and forth all night.
And there is Krebs. Seems like this Gridlock D-line offense looks its best when Krebs gets in motion. When I say D-line offense, I mean the O-line hold offense. Again, many players who started this game on the D-line. Pressburg, again, still directing traffic. And sometimes, Tricia, it's a little bit of gamesmanship as well, because when you're directing traffic like that, sometimes, again, you're not directing it for your teammates, but sometimes just to move the opposition to let them know, hey, that's what I'm thinking of. Well, I'm actually not thinking of that, but I want you to think that I'm thinking of that. And there's Pressburg again. You see the point for potentially a teammate, but really just to move the mark.
And it's amazing how often that works. Eli's doing it with their hands. Abby Hecko's with her fakes. Such sharp fakes from Abby Hecko.
Another 40 seconds have gone off the clock as we sit here chatting. And the Gridlock still find themselves down by one. They've been in some tight games this season. Think back to week one against the Surge. And this Gridlock over the last two seasons have found a way time after time after time. But still, with 3:52 now on the clock, down by one. Now, about 15, 20 yards away from the end zone. Pressburg. So the Gridlock not really in a hurry. I think this is a team that's a bit unafraid of, no, we're not supposed to say it, Tricia, broadcaster Kurtz, but we'll whisper overtime, but they've got the pedigree in those big moments. Krebs. Still, until you score, you're still down by one. Pressburg. And now it's to the point where could Atlanta, with 3:10, just try to nurse the rest of the clock. Now one throw away. Krebs goes to the back of the end zone, and the patience pays off. And finally, Grace Connerly. First goal of the season, and it could not come at a better time from the Chapel Hill native. So much patience from that Gridlock offense, and just getting willing to take time off the clock. Now, if you're Atlanta with 3 minutes remaining, Tricia, how do you play this one out? I think the expectation would just be simply get into the end zone and worry about the rest afterwards.
Absolutely. They will be going upwind. This is a must score. Take as much time as you need in order to do that. And I think for Atlanta, they're trying to remember to play with joy, to take advantage of this moment and focus on them, focus on the controllables. They're getting the disc, and they can really take care of it.
Just going to remind you, if you're enjoying this live stream, you can scan that QR code to support the New York Gridlock. Please consider donating the price of a ticket to the team as well. All donations go directly to supporting athlete travel and training. We thank you for your support. So after that timeout, all tied up at 12. Again, with 2:59 on the clock. It has felt like, Tricia, even when this game tied, it has felt like Atlanta has been in the driver's seat all game long, I should say, with the one time that the Gridlock found themselves ahead in that first half was, again, on that break, 6-5 from Harris. But since that time, and it was a quick break back, remember, Gridlock up 6-5, but then 6-6, Matanya was in the end zone, then the break, 7-6. Marissa Cano found herself in the end zone. Atlanta has not looked back.
No, and nor should they. They are playing fantastic, and Montana really looking like one of the best players out there on the field tonight.
You'd have to make a good argument that Montana would probably be the player of the game if the Soul were able to hang on, and what a win would this be for, again, that Soul program that had not faced off against the Gridlock, and that is a tough catch on the pull. It should be mentioned. They have not faced off against one another since 2019, the first season of the PUL's existence. And we got a call.
Call on the field. Players are going to readjust.
And this will be a quick discussion. I don't think too much to discuss. I believe it might be a pick behind with the clock at 2:27 and still knotted up at 12. Into the end zone. Looks like Harris has position. And that is going to be an integrity call, I believe, from Harris. Or no, instead, it's the observer. They immediately go to the observer between Batanya and Harris. They immediately go to the observer because, if I'm not mistaken, that was a catch by Zay. So that is called a goal. It is 13-12 with 2:15 remaining.
Wow. Sam Harris making their way into that space and getting the block, only for them to tip it up.
So it is Harris
able to collect it on the other side, not giving up on the disc, laying out and catching it. And there was a foul immediately called, and so they looked to the observer to say, do we resolve that? No, Zay caught it. They have the goal. And celebrating, bringing that joy that the Atlanta Soul is known for. That's such a core part of their team.
So with 2:15 remaining here in the fourth quarter, again, Gridlock still down by 1, but we got a soccer game going on behind us, and it reminds me of, again, almost playing advantage, where the foul was called, and can see Harris, I thought that's what they did. They said, hey, with integrity, that's foul, but again, it is kind of a play on advantage situation, and it's still advantage Atlanta, up by 1, 13-12. So it is kind of that moment for the Gridlock because on average, Tricia, it has felt like it has taken them around a minute 45 to score, on average, their goals.
And we see a really mixed line here from New York Gridlock. Jolie Krebs, Abby Hecko, Pressburg, Youngst, Jenny DeJesus, Banta Ryan.
And you call those different things, right? They call kill lines or the universe lines, whatever you want to call them. Again, this is the Gridlock saying, hey, we need a line out there that's going to get a quick score. And you might see many of these players staying on the field. And Krebs is going to go to the observer here with 1:46 remaining. Again, not too much time. A reminder, we do last possession for the first 3 quarters, but for this one, these two just have The observer's actually going to reset at 155. And again, every second could count here. With Atlanta up by 1, under 2 to play.
Yeah, we haven't seen this group of players out altogether. They've been spreading them out to have depth on both lines, but bringing them together with just under 2 minutes to go really is showing that they mean business.
So now we're looking at 1:40 on the clock. Krebs with it. Hecko has 2 on the break side. Finds Pressburg. Back to Hecko, but now 1:30 on the clock. Krebs again. Important break throw, floated. At one point, again, do the Gridlock start to think end zone? They have plenty of time, though, 1:20.
Thank you to the ball girls and ball boys for helping.
That was tight pressure by Atlanta. Jungst in on it. 1:10 to play. Krebs. Pressburg. Jungst again. Maybe some physicality with Matanya. Good body control, though, by Jungst. Now Hecko. We're at 54. So now it might be time. Start to work towards that end zone. Not saying they haven't been before, but we've got Krebs. Pressburg. 10 yards away in the Gridlock. Tie it up. 13 all.
Just 40 seconds left on the clock.
Patience be the principle. It really wasn't anything different. It wasn't anything special. It's just they got close enough to toss one up over the top.
And Atlanta's still in that zone, and what we see is really nice reset space by Hecko, and they were able to continue to move the disc, and then Jungst just using her speed, blowing past the defenders, and because Atlanta was still in the zone, they were all in front of her. So when Pressburg put it up over the top, just landed right into the bread basket. Jungst able to tie it up with 40 seconds.
I think there was also a very Caitlin Clark-esque gravity by Jenny DeJesus in the back of the end zone as well, because you know if there happened to be a late clock situation, a 50-50 in the air, you're going to trust DeJesus 9 out of 10 times. So 13 all, and the Atlanta Soul here in the second half, they have been broken just once, and that was to end the third on that last possession that lasted, again, almost over 2 minutes. Jungst finally put it in. So, again, 40.1 picked up. Griner to Booth. Now to Jesus on Booth. And interesting here, they're going to give about that first 10 yards. So, getting to about midfield. And then you saw Harris came to bring the pressure. Now Booth with 20 on the clock as of now, 13 all. Break throw in, Matanya. Throw under pressure. Now Griner on the sideline, 10 seconds. The clock will stop here. The observers blowing their whistle with 8.2.
That will be on May 31st.
And we'll have to see what the call is here.
New Jersey Copeland in Hillsborough, New Jersey.
Jenny DeJesus coming
with an injury.
off the field with an injury call.
8 seconds on the clock.
So that is an injury with 8 seconds remaining. So exactly 8 on the clock, 13 all. So DeJesus getting treated. And in case this game does go to overtime, that could be a huge loss because, again, DeJesus, not just like a little bit of a knock, but being seen by the trainer now. 5 seconds. So we're going to have to look end zone. Do they have time? And I don't think so. Observers saying that they did not get it off in time. So we do not have a buzzer beater. We don't even have a final throw. Instead, we're going to have some extra ultimate here with this one tied up at 13 all.
Yeah, we are going to overtime, Dan. Wow, coming into this game, Gridlock 4-0, Atlanta 1-2, excuse me. This has been maybe not what Gridlock expected when they were doing their preparation for this game, coming out a little slow against them.
But Tricia, we've seen it now in the last 2 seasons. Whether it was the Surge on a number of occasions, the Gridlock seemingly have a way where even if they're not playing their best, because we've seen the Atlanta Soul has given the Gridlock one of the best games we've seen from the Soul, maybe in franchise history, and yet the Gridlock are able to, even through mistakes, turnovers, miscommunications, they've been able to, again, just sustain that pressure. Do the Soul have one final punch here, or can the Gridlock protect their undefeated record? 13-all. We're heading to extra frisbee. So maybe the one mistake that the Atlanta Soul have made in this contest is they did not get a throw off to potentially get a buzzer-beating win here in New Rochelle. Instead, the clock strikes 0, and now's the time to know whether or not the Atlanta Soul are going to turn. What are they? I guess it's a peach, not a pumpkin at midnight, Tricia. But for the Gridlock, again, to feel like maybe with all these pieces missing, having not played your best, finding a way to get to overtime. In this situation, you've been in overtime situations before. What galvanized you in that extra 4 minutes of extra time?
It's really a matter of focus. Really, like, Gridlock is going to come out fighting for it, but they need to stay focused. And we saw them lose focus in so many moments in this game. Really having throwaways, those turnovers being caused by themselves, by their own team, and not necessarily Atlanta causing them. So they need to stay really locked in as they move into this.
It's been so interesting because we've seen less scoring in the second half, but also less mistakes. Just a lot more possession, a lot more safety with the disc. And that is something, again, that both coaches told me pregame, that we want to show the best that women and gender-expansive ultimate has to offer in taking care of the disc, playing at a high level. So, again, 4 minutes on the clock here in what would be the first overtime. And the coin flip was won by the Gridlock, as they will receive, unless for some wild reason, Tricia, they won the coin flip Atlanta would have won and decided to receive, but no. The Gridlock won the coin flip, so they will receive. A reminder, too, that if after 4 minutes we cannot decide a winner, overtime 2 ends with the first score, a.k.a. sudden death. And Atlanta would receive because it would be the opposite of what we'd see in the first extra time period. So again, the records here, throw them out the window. Gridlock 4-0, Atlanta Soul 1-2. Soul still fighting, you feel it here. So odd too to have to fight for your playoff lives outside of your division against a team that you do not play very often, are not very familiar with. Meanwhile, for the Gridlock, they can still clinch a playoff berth tonight.
Yeah, and coming back to that end of quarter play, end of regulation play, Atlanta has got to get that disc off. They have to at least make an attempt to the end zone. That could have won them the game. And now here we are in extra minutes, and they're going to have to put more miles on the legs that they've already traveled.
So Ford will give us the pull to start overtime. And the Gridlock will finish up their season, regular season I should say, on June the 8th, that last game against the Indy Red. Because again, if they clinch the postseason here, we just have seeding. ramifications. But again, this one has playoff ramifications. Pressburg has Junks going deep, but not with a full commitment. Doesn't look for Junks on the under.
Atlanta coming out in person defense, one-on-one matchups, and we haven't really been seeing them win those.
Well, that was a poach that peeled off and Hecko through traffic.
Yeah, Harn was really close on that one, made some contact with Hecko. But they're staying in this person, trying to stay tight. I'm honestly surprised.
Krebs, what a grab. Having to lay out around shoulder length. Grabbing that with the right hand. Now Hecko. And if you're Atlanta, looking at the good pressure that you've brought, and yet somehow just these long, talented Gridlock receivers. Hecko, 2.5, so already almost 40% of time taken off the clock here.
Pick called on the field. Players adjust.
Pick called on the field, so players are adjusting, and with Krebs on the disc.
Again, 2:20 on the clock. And they did not put more clock on, so it is 2:12 actually. Pressburg and Bantarayan. 14-13, Gridlock take their second lead of this game here in overtime.
That is exactly what Gridlock needed to do. They needed to come out and put the pressure on Atlanta. Make them come back and score. And Atlanta has been taking advantage of the break opportunities that Gridlock was giving them. Gridlock could not give one of those up in this overtime. Again, patient movement by Gridlock. And then through the middle, Bantarayan using her speed to reel it in from Pressburg.
The observers have signaled to put
And I'll be so curious after this game to see the completion percentages. Coming in, Gridlock was at 91.8 completion percentage with Atlanta only at 87.5. So we've seen quite a bit of turnovers. We'll see some of that change, but it really has felt even with, and again, as you said earlier, Dan, with Atlanta in the driver's seat for a lot of it.
So Gridlock, can they get, and not only necessarily a break, they don't necessarily need a break, they just need to create a war of attrition that Atlanta does not win for 2 minutes and 7 seconds, now 4 seconds. So Booth, who's been willing to shoot. Maybe Atlanta finally for the first time this game has felt, Tricia, like they've been the team not playing with pressure. Now for the first time, Atlanta will have to play with a little bit of pressure.
Gridlock in a junkie set, trying to muck up some of those throws, be out in the lane. But Atlanta's moving it with ease right now. Marched it down to half field.
They don't look like they're too worried about it. Some low throws, but easily handled. 1:30 now. Jose. Now to Griner. She's made some huge both defensive and offensive plays in this game. Booth. Been the linchpin of their offense. Now 1:10 left to go. Zay. Too deep. The wind picking up again. 1 minute. We're in the final 60. So Atlanta, remember, they did not get a final throw off at the end of the fourth quarter, and they would not like to repeat that here. Now 40 on the clock. Yeah. That one tight. Nice grab by Jarrell. And this will be a timeout.
Looks like there's a timeout.
As Atlanta want to talk about it with 35.6 remaining.
We might get a slight adjustment.
Yeah, the Gridlock's defense, when they came out, weren't putting a lot of pressure on the handlers and allowed them to march up the field straight to the 50. And then that really junky set that they were throwing was mucking it up for Atlanta. They didn't have as much momentum. We talked earlier in the game that Atlanta is really the most efficient when they can have that give and go moment, when they can find the space and those soft spaces on the field for players to make their way into as someone else is catching it so that they can continue the momentum. They really stalled out on that, not a literal stall, but to the point where Booth felt, I need to take a timeout. We need to talk about this. Let's figure out our set. We see what they're running. 40 seconds. Let's come back with a plan. So let's see what they've drawn up in that timeout.
And the plan is the same 7 on both sides, it looks like, to come out for this point. Booth immediately goes to the wing. Now just 33 seconds. Griner about 40 yards from their own end zone. Griner slicing through the first layer, but now going deep to Booth, coming over the top. And it looks like a disagreement. Booth disagreeing with the defense of Halavati. It will go to the observer with 18.1 on the clock.
Booth immediately called the foul as she went up for it.
And it looks like Halavati went up earlier than Booth did, but Booth saying that they had position, and the observer agrees that Booth had position. So with 18.1 in this first overtime, Booth will take possession in the end zone, so they will, that being Atlanta, will come out. So Booth, with now 15. One throw away. Booth into the assured hands of Griner.
We're tied up again.
And some extracurricular with De Jesus. And I believe we're going to be tied up at 14 all. Let's see what the observers rule. But there's 11.3 on the clock. Atlanta have begun to celebrate, and the observers say it's goal. So it's 14 all officially. Booth to Griner.
Griner continuing to speak with the observer over that play.
So things getting pretty spicy here.
Here we have a second look after the call on Booth. Booth tapping it in, looking, and Griner really just beats De Jesus to the space. Jenny feeling like maybe there was a little bit too much contact. I think Griner just got there first.
Yeah, again, heated competition. And if you wanted a preparation for the postseason, and we're still a month away, but it feels like that those postseason vibes have already begun. And the level of this game has been high since the opening jump, with that first initial break from Atlanta, and then coming out in the second half, doing it the exact same way with another break. So does Atlanta have one more magical break in them? Probably not in this first overtime, at least, as they will also start. If Gridlock did not win here, they will start the second overtime as the rain has also begun to come down. So
wow. Not sure if you can see this on the broadcast, but the skies have just opened up, and we have a heavy rain that has started. So a new element for this last 11 seconds of overtime for players to adjust to.
So Gridlock have maybe one or two throws in them. Krebs instead, the pump fake. Hecko, 5 seconds. Can they get a huck off? Yes, they can. It's Pressburg. This one will reach the end zone. There are bodies everywhere. And I think a foul is going to be called. It's player asking for the foul. So that was with 0 on the clock. And this is one of those, Tricia, even you and I, you take a breath, because a lot to be sorted out here. How much time would go back on the clock?
Yeah, several players going up. Pressburg making a point to get it to the end zone before time runs out.
And it got all the way there, certainly, with a pile of bodies. You saw it was player there, it was leader, Booth, And player, I believe, calling a foul on Sanders.
And on that playback, Dan, I really couldn't tell. It looked like, as they are charading, making the movements as they're talking to the observers, player doing hand motions as if she caught said she had possession. I don't see that. We'll have to see what the observers call. Hopefully they had better perspective than we did.
Again, this might be the last chance for the Gridlock as well. Because again, Atlanta begins that second overtime period potentially with the disc.
Rain.
So again, the rain just pouring down here in New Rochelle. This one knotted up at 14 all. With
yeah, we're fine. It's like sprinkling.
Observers have had to make some tough decisions today, and this is the biggest of the bunch. And
no foul.
Looks like no foul called on the play, so that should take us to the second overtime period. We'll see if any time is put on, even if it is Atlanta's disc. This would have to be the throw of the century to get it the entire length of the field. See what they're still talking about, but.
Oh my goodness, folks. The observer is not making an active call here. We are looking at this as a contested foul.
Wow.
So it is a contested foul. My goodness. So this will.
The observers are coming back and saying we did not have a good perspective on it either.
Neither did we, Tricia.
Yeah, and this is a contested call.
So, yeah, it's going to be Leader at the front of the end zone. And everybody with their hands up. So was it a quick on the draw, too quick on the draw from Leader into player? And it's so interesting, Tricia, because I think we're getting to that point here in this first overtime where all this consternation and conflict almost overshadows what has been a 10 of 10 game of Ultimate that we have seen here tonight in New Rochelle.
Yeah, Lally here saying that there's a travel on Leader. And that
because of a quick tap in.
Yeah.
And that is the argument that Lally is making.
And it is really unfortunate that the game has devolved into this many calls at the end when we've had such a really great 10 out of 10 game.
So there it is.
Wow.
The third time this game, the Gridlock had taken a lead, and it's the final one of the contest. It's going to be Leader to player with zeros on the clock in overtime. 15-14. Atlanta Soul giving the Gridlock everything they could handle and more. Took them to the final moment. Let me add two more finals on the end of that, and then it was finally Leader into player to move the Gridlock to 5-0 on the season, and Atlanta falls to the harshest 1-3.
Yeah, so what happened there for viewers at home is that there were actually two calls in the end zone on that buzzer beater. One in which the observer said that they didn't see it. The other one they said was contested, and because it was zeros, Chelsea Leader got the disc on the end zone and had one throw, and that was the throw to player. Once the observer said that there was not a travel, that's game. So here we are with New York Gridlock maintaining their undefeated season. Undefeated since last year as well. Championships hopes. They have just clinched with this win, a playoff appearance. And Atlanta should be really proud of this game that they've had. They really came out and fought, used their zone effectively, played with joy, and showed that even though the record right now is 1-4, they are a fierce team that they are here to compete.
So, as we'll see those final highlights, DeJesus can't stop her from getting in the end zone. Matanya couldn't stop her from getting in the end zone either today. Booth tossing some dimes at a very young age. Banta Ryan in some huge moments. Yost as well, tying it up at 13 all with 40.1 seconds remaining. Before that, it was Zay at 13-12. Thought that one could have been the winner. We saw some zone, we saw some wind, and now we're seeing some torrential downpour as the skies have opened up with that overtime period. So Again, a 10 of 10 game that we got to bear witness to. We want to thank you so much for joining us on this stream. For our producer, Charlie Eisenhood, my partner in crime, Trisha Smith, I'm Dave Delton. Everybody, have a wonderful weekend.